Okay, we're going to go ahead and finish up the Gospel of John in week 46 and go from chapter 16 to the end in chapter 21. And as always, really through the whole New Testament, but it seems like especially in the Gospel of John, way more to say than we even have time for. But let's notice a few things as we continue in the last night of Jesus's life before he's crucified, and then talk about his death and resurrection. We said in the previous week's video that much of what Jesus is trying to do in this final conference with his disciples between chapters 13 and 17 is comfort them for his departure, and maybe the succinct statement of that is in 16:33. I have overcome the world. So much of what he has to say to them is take courage that I have not only been with you, but now I'm leaving my spirit with you. And even though you have seen me opposed and hated, and you will be treated much the same way, take confidence in who I am and the oneness that you have with me and with the Father. Know that you have conquered because I have conquered. And then in chapter 17, as he prays over these apostles on the night that he is betrayed, he emphasizes not only that, but he emphasizes the oneness that he wants all of his disciples to have. And there's something amazing about this prayer in chapter 17 because Jesus very explicitly extends this prayer not just for those within the sound of his voice, so to speak, but for all those who will hear. Those of us, for all time, that will hear the word that was passed down by these same apostles and believe in Jesus because of that word, he prays that they would all be one. And so like we've seen before, oneness, the oneness that Jesus shares with the Father, he wants his disciples to share with him and with the Father and with one another. And that is at the heart of what Jesus is earnestly desiring on his final hours before his crucifixion. Well, then going from there, Jesus stands trial before Pilate after he's arrested by the Jews. And he tells Pilate in chapter 18, while all this is going down, my kingdom is not of this world. And that gets back to, in some ways, the message of triumph that he had communicated to his disciples. But it also says something about Jesus really standing above everything that was going on. And notice in these chapters in particular how as he's led from trial to trial, as he is arrested, as he's put on the cross, that really Jesus is the one in control. That everything is happening exactly as he planned it, as it was planned by the Father, as he is carrying it out. Remember all the way through John, my hour is not yet come, but here it is, this is his hour. He's in control, and he is accomplishing something far greater than anyone at the ground level could have any idea of. And so his kingdom is not like the kingdoms of man. It is not of this world, and he is accomplishing something far greater here than anyone can imagine. But John describes the events that lead Jesus to the cross. He describes Jesus on the cross, a powerful, emotional moment. But John says at the end of chapter 19, this is true. I witnessed this and I saw it and I'm writing it to you. I'm trustworthy. I'm saying all of this so that you may believe. And that's a big theme here as John closes his gospel. Remember then when Jesus is raised from the dead in chapter 20, he appears with his disciples. Thomas has his doubts. He comes back the next week when Jesus appears to his disciples again. And Thomas says, my Lord and my God. Jesus says, blessed are you who believe, see and believe, and yet more blessed are those, well, I shouldn't say that. He says, you see and believe, blessed are those who do not see and yet believe. And he says in chapter 20 that all these things he wrote down, John wrote them so that we may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and by believing have life in his name. All of John's gospel was written intentionally to provoke this belief in Jesus, the only source of life. And especially here at the end in his death and resurrection, do we see that in its fullness. And then just because we want to finish up the book, chapter 21 is a great chapter. It's a great epilogue to the book, especially the story of Peter. Jesus in some ways gives him a chance to redeem himself by expressing his love 3 times after denying him 3 times. And then he very powerfully says, Peter, it's going to be hard and your experience is going to be different from other people, but you have a job to do. Tend my sheep. Follow me. And it's a wonderful lesson for each of us, even if we have failed Jesus in the past, even if we're facing difficulty or having a hard time comparing our life to other people. Jesus would say, you follow me. Let's try to do that and hope that this reading of the Gospel of John will help us to do that. And check back in next week as we start on the epistles of John.